Growing up, I drank the Kool-Aid of my parents' and community's beliefs. I made that belief system more important than my own needs and happiness. Looking back, I can't fault anyone for that, not even quote-unquote God. I now have clarity in decisions and choices I make. I'm fully engaged in finding joy in my life, in my own way, without the influence and construct of others. This is an uplifting discussion from there to now.
Hi, everyone. Well, I'm really excited about this podcast because I'm with Evan Stowers.
Hello. Is this where I talk?
It's Tower with an S in front of it.
That's right. I was going to say Powers, but that just sounds very, conceited.
No, not at all. I think it's fabulous.
Yeah.
So I brought you on because every time I get my hair done, which is very high maintenance, I must admit, I go in every 3 weeks.
It's great.
I think I'm your only client that comes in every 3 weeks
You
in that
are.
frequency.
Yes.
Yes, and I've gotten to know everyone in the salon really well. And every time I sit down in the chair, we just start talking. And we have figured out that we've got this common interest in all things outside the box, namely conspiracy theories.
Yes.
And the last time I was getting my hair done, but by the way, doesn't it look fabulous?
I really like the color. I think it looks great.
I mean, because of you.
Well,
I mean, how many colors do I have in my hair right now?
I mean, that's hard to say. You've got a little bit going on.
Right? Go for it.
Sorry about that.
So I actually got a very amazing compliment, and I do almost every day. I was walking into a building to solicit business to list a property, and this lady was doing some janitorial work, and she was just staring at me aghast like this as I walked in, and I was like, "Hi." She goes, "Is that copper on your hair?" I'm like, "Yeah, it is mostly copper, but it's lots of other colors."
Yeah.
And I get my roots done, and then I also get glazed.
Yes,
Afterwards.
you
and
do get glazed,
It
yes.
is a process, and I
Yeah.
am there every 3 weeks, and it's high maintenance. She goes, "It is so beautiful."
Sweet.
I'm like, "Thank you." So plug there for you, Evan. You own the Desert Lounge Salon.
Yep.
And you have an amazing salon there of amazing women and really great music playing all the time.
Thank you.
Yes. And then, of course, we have really enlightening conversations with each other.
We do.
The last time I sat down on the chair, we just started talking about things and our sources. And so this is going to be a really great conversation because you and I are on the same page. But, my producer, Sean, is a bit of a naysayer to all of these things that we will be talking about. And as I accused him openly before we started this podcast and before you walked into this room, that he believes what he sees on the news.
Amazing. I don't know, Sean, I don't know if you're a naysayer or is it just your job to just contradict everyone?
No, it's my job to be like, I don't care what you're saying. I'm like, I could believe maybe 15 to 30% of that, but it's like, nah.
But what about the news, Sean? That's a whole conspiracy theory in itself.
As I said, 15 to 30%.
Yeah.
Of the news?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you watch it?
No.
Okay, thank God.
Oh, there we go.
I read
makes so
Daily
much
Mail,
sense.
though.
We can end. We just solved that.
Oh, thank God. What is Daily Mail?
What is Daily Mail?
That's what he reads.
It's a news source from England.
Oh, okay.
Do you feel like that's more authoritative, more accurate, less biased?
I get breadth, not depth.
Breath,
not depth.
Wow, I'm going to have to really think about that.
It's really stumping me right now.
Me too.
I'm
I don't
just
even know how to
thinking about
respond to
Daily
it.
Mail and how I would be so nice to get mail daily, right?
Daily Mail.
That's where I'm.
Well, this is here. I'll show you on the screen. Here.
Okay.
So I turned it on, and there's something about Real Housewives and 6.
I see boobs.
Megan Fox.
Yeah. Okay. This is
something about
this
there.
Is,
this makes
is
complete sense.
breath.
Target peeping Tom. Jeff
Peeping
Bezos.
Tom? What?
Oh my gosh.
Husband strangles estranged wife. That's exciting.
That is rough.
So this sounds very varied.
It's all over. There's a bunch of midgets.
What
getting
is
married.
that guy? Oh, I wanted.
That's the guy from Wicked. No, not he's Wicket, not Wicked.
I don't know if you when this is coming out, but I feel like this is a public service announcement. When I was driving through Vegas, and they also say don't be on your phone, but there's just a million billboards.
Right.
There was a sign for this strip club called Little Darlings.
I love that place.
There is a little darling this weekend named Shortcake. So in case anybody wanted to know that, just, keeping in.
I love shortcakes, actually, with strawberries.
Really? You might want to check it out. I think she's performing Friday, Saturday night.
Really? At Little Darlings?
At Little Darlings.
I might have to go into town, to my hometown, and go check this out.
Perfect.
Thank you for that PSA.
You're welcome. I feel like people need to know that's valuable.
Right. So I just want to let you guys all know, my audience who is listening currently, all 66 of you,
Amazing.
that the purpose of this podcast is not really to get you to believe anything per se. It really is to help you start thinking outside the box, literally using your cognitive thinking skills. When something comes across the plate and you're like, here's a factual thing or not even a non-factual, here's a statement made, do you just immediately cast it aside, or do you even actually toy with it and play with that concept and go, is this something that actually could be accurate or true or real? And so what are one of those things that you've just come across recently?
That I've just come across?
Or
Oh,
something
man.
that you've just been really ruminating on, just marinating in, and you're just like,
You know, I've been thinking
Is
about those
this-
red heifers.
okay, yeah, this conversation with the red heifers. You're like, how does someone find red heifers? Okay, let's go back to really what this is all about, because this is, I think, how our conversation ended the last time I got my hair
Is
done.
it? Did we talk about the red
We
heifers?
did talk about the red
I'm still
heifers.
thinking about the red heifers.
Okay,
There's no
to
follow-up.
explain.
There's been zero follow-up. Okay.
Go to the beginning.
I'm like, oh my gosh, this is going to get political. So we all know the Israel thing that's happening. And supposedly, so during the eclipse,
Right.
there was these 2 red heifers that got sourced from Texas. They went through like all these farms. They like found these 2. They can't have white hair. They can't have black hair. They have to be completely. And so they bought them and then they sent them over to Israel like in I don't really know, but like as pets. And then they're in this undisclosed location. And supposedly they're going to be sacrificed because then that does some kind of prophecy, and then they can start building the Temple of Solomon. I think that's what it is.
Okay.
And then that is going to like usher in the millennium. So, you know, we're just got
Or
all
like
these
the
people.
last days.
The last days, which is really interesting and incredible. Because you're like, okay, now we're controlling when this happens.
So it's being manipulated.
Yeah, and I never heard about it after that.
Well, okay, so where was this? What was the source?
It was on another conspiracy podcast. That was the source. But I think he had sources that I cannot name right now.
Okay.
But yeah, that's where I
But
heard
the
it from.
significance of it is that it all fell during the eclipse, and everyone and all these different people had all these beliefs about
Right.
what is the eclipse bringing,
Right.
right? And then this is how we ended up talking about it, because technically the eclipse formed a cross over America
Oh, I didn't realize this.
and
Okay.
literally intersected over certain key poignant areas of Central North America, meaning Missouri,
Okay.
where there's these significant mounds and ancient sites. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that. I just heard it was like going through Texas and Georgia
Right.
and like everything like that. I didn't know that going through Missouri.
Yeah.
But much love to Missouri.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Go show me state,
Yes.
which actually ironically was referenced very heavily in that movie Civil War just recently.
Oh, I haven't seen that either.
So it's really fascinating because in the movie Civil War, I just look for symbolism in everything,
Right.
right? And do you find that there's symbolism in movies that you're watching and some of the things? So in this movie I watched it because I had a guy friend who said, it's so good. So my daughter and I went, and literally I wanted to walk out about 30 minutes into it
Okay.
because it was extremely gory and so horribly mean and gross in the way that they portray humans in a very stressful, horrendous event where they do really mean, horrible things to each other. Like it just, bleh. Anyhow, but there were certain key things that they brought up in it. For one, they mentioned very specifically that the rogue states that were creating the Civil War was California, Texas, and Florida.
Amazing.
How fascinating.
Yeah. Huh. So we were talking off, what is this, microphone? Off microphone. That I study rhetoric. So I have my bachelor's in communication. I study rhetoric. And rhetorical analysis is when you take like, I can't think right now. My brain is just mush. But you take an artifact and then you break that down. And typically it presents like ideologies about what like is happening in society, right? So yeah, that makes perfect sense to me that that's what's happening right now. And then in the conspiracy theory world, they talk about revelation of the method. And so that means that like there's, you could say Illuminati, whatever, like they operate under these certain rules, and those rules are that they have to reveal what they're going to do before they do it. It also like puts like that karma on like us as well. Like they're like, hey, we already told you, like we washed our hands of you, right? And so I think that with, there's obviously a lot of uncertainty right now. We're kind of in this weird spot. And so I actually think it's so timely that these things are coming out.
Right?
Yeah. So to me, that makes I'm not surprised at all.
Exactly, which is why I had to see the movie, even though it was really, of course, came from a press perspective, which then really turned me off too, because I really feel like a lot of the images and the videos and all of the things that we're getting through the news is consistently the same, which we know there's way more happening than just what we're getting, right?
Right.
But then I've also seen how some of this images in these videos are also altered to portray something a particularly way to stir a certain type of emotion within us that is pumped out there. So I found it really ironic and interesting that they created a movie called Civil War, but yet it's from the perspective of a press person and how they are literally on the front lines capturing the real images and the real things that are happening on the front lines, and to really just embed in us to believe the fucking bullshit that we see coming across the news.
Right. Which is another theory that is essentially what's happening, right? Like there's like 5 like people, like there's a group of people that own, right? Like all the 5 big like news syndicates, right? And so like that's the other thing. I think like when you hear these things, like it's easy for us to say, like I'm not going to listen to the news. I'm not going to do this because like you're just like, this is just propaganda, right?
Right.
And then interesting that they're propagandizing that in the film. Yes.
Okay, this is the other thing. Everyone who I know in my world watches the news
Okay.
are always constantly talking to me about politics. Who gives a fuck? Because do we really even have control of this?
Yeah.
And I know I'm making people's blood curdle right now.
Right.
Because I have a lot of friends that are in the political scene locally.
Sure.
But nationally, do we really have that control? Because we vote, but what ultimately determines who makes it to the presidency?
Right. I think
The electoral vote.
Right.
And who the fuck are the electoral voters?
Right. Well, so and then that becomes discouraging, right? Now a lot of like younger people are like, well, I'm not even going to vote. Like there's no point, right? But then that, I don't know, that's just such an interesting thing because like I'm kind of this, what you were saying, like from a local level, I feel like there's a lot that you can to be done about voting like locally.
Right. I feel that is more important for sure.
Yeah. And then you're like, oh, but then is it as important to vote like federally, right? I mean, who's to say? I mean, I still think your vote matters of you. It's like an outward of an inward, right? Like you're like, okay, I'm going to do this, where a lot of people are just like, whatever, I'm not going to do this anymore. But I think it's really discouraging, right? Because there's even like, we live in a is it a red state?
I think, we are considered a red state.
And, there's a lot of things that get rolled out and then people are like immediately like, well, it's not going to pass, right? And then they end up not voting. They end up not doing this. And you're like, well, maybe if there was enough people to do it, like, I mean, and we're talking more on like a state level, maybe those things would pull through. But we've also seen it not. So it's confirmation bias, right? So I think that's what we're constantly dealing with. The struggle is that you're always dealing with confirmation bias.
Right.
Like whatever way you go, you can find something for anything to back you up, which I think makes conspiracy theories even more interesting.
Okay. Yes. So going to the presidency in this election that's coming up in the fall.
Right.
Why are we still talking about how shitty Biden is and how stupid Trump is?
Right.
Why are we talking about these things?
Right.
Does this accomplish anything?
I mean, I feel like it just, in my opinion, and I mean, I do listen to a limited amount. I'm going to be open and honest about that. Just because in my environment, like we're actually encouraged to not talk about politics and stuff like that. We know that we just talk about whatever we want, but like, it's just also not that interesting to me because I feel like we're like in like a Street Fighter match and we just got random characters just thrown in here. And I think that some of that, in my personal opinion, my biases is that all of that other stuff is just noise to distract. I think a lot of
it is a distraction from what though?
I don't really know. I think that we're just these are my personal opinions. I feel like we're so like overwhelmed Like when you sit down, you watch Netflix. Like we could really take this for like you could take it for Netflix. You could take it for dating. You could take it. We have so much information now at our fingertips, and you would think that would like give us more power, but I think it's just so overwhelming that like we're all now just trying to survive like our day-to-day lives, and so then all that other noise like really doesn't, like we're just like, I don't even want to deal with it. Like it doesn't really matter anymore.
Right.
And then we just do our lives. Like for me personally, I think I even said this today. It was like, oh, did Biden have like 8 years or 4 years? It feels like 8 years, but not because like, it's just because I feel like time is fast and slow all at once right now. And then I'm just like, well, I'm just going to do my thing. Like no matter who is in the presidency, like I have to go to work every day. I have to do a thing. I have to take care of my family.
Exactly.
It's like, it's important, but also like, at least for me, and I'm very fortunate, I'm speaking from a place of like, I get to make my schedule, which means I also can work longer, where some people are capped, right? So I'm just like, well, if it's a weird year, I'm just going to work more. So I feel like that's also comes from a place of privilege that I don't really have to worry about it the way that some people have to worry about it, right?
But who really has to worry about who's in the presidency? Because we really have no control over this.
Right.
And if we focus on that, then we're taking away, like you said, the energy to really thrive and function as really buoyant, successful people in our everyday life.
Right.
Wouldn't you say? Because I have some friends who have family members that have literally gotten themselves into huge depression funks based off of what is going on in the state of our nation. And how much do we put energy into that? And how much do we put energy into really hopeful, positive thoughts and things into our current environment and the people who we engage and interact with on a daily basis and within our community here in Southern Utah?
I think for people that are like really into it, then maybe that's like a good use of energy, right? And obviously it's going to affect everybody different. Like I have, so I have a sibling that like her and her husband, they're very liberal and they have very opposing like views than my parents who are very conservative, right? We like have chose to kind of necessarily not talk about it, but then I like to just stir everything up. So I'll be like, oh, I heard that they're taking cursive out of school because AI can't read cursive. Or I'll be like, or so that like kids can't learn the Declaration. And
right,
then
because
it just
the Declaration
like,
of Independence
and then
is
it
in
just
cursive.
rattles everyone. But like really like, it's just kind of funny. And it's just like, you can only control like what you can control, right? And
it's
then,
so true. And then it's really interesting to see who really takes it so fucking serious that really wants to just banter hardcore back.
Right.
Whereas they could just see it as, oh, this is fascinating and let's have fun back in a banter and not, hate each other at the end of the day.
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, it's like, I don't know, this is me. This is my own personal thing that I'm learning there's very little that I can control. Like I'm just trying to like do the best I can and roll with it. And I think like, it feels like there's patterns. So it's like people are going to be like in the presidency for 8 years, typically, right? So it just flops every 8 years and you just do your thing.
And so I've heard too that everything a president puts his time and effort into in that term is not actually going to come to fruition until the next term of the other president.
Right.
You've heard that too, right?
Yeah. And I've also heard like, and I don't know if this is true, but then also the next president does everything in their power to like unravel everything that the first president did. Right. So you're just like, I think these are the theories that get us as like
divided.
Cause we're just like, but what could we see like the good things, right? Like what if we like focus on the good things on like a local level or the good things on like what we can kind of control, right? And there's even theories about that, like, sorry, 66 people. Like there's theories that I hear all day about like, there's also this like ominous good old boys club that also like runs the town and that a lot of things don't change. But you do see things slowly change, right?
Oh, they are.
So you could like, that could be in itself a conspiracy theory, right? You get discouraged and say, well, I'm not going to turn up for this. I'm not going to turn up for that because the good old boys are controlling
That is
everything.
so funny. Someone just said that to me today.
Yeah.
They just moved here from Salt Lake City a year and a half ago. And she said, yeah, the good old boys, you can totally tell they're running the town.
Right.
I was like,
who are these good old boys? I'd like to meet them.
Yeah.
But like, it's the same thing like the government,
the real
right?
estate owners, the people who got into the real estate in Southern Utah long before us transplants got here.
Yeah. And that could be a thing, but if you also listen, like think about it, like that's a pattern, that's a theme, right? So the theme is that the good old boys are running the town. The theme is that there's this ominous like government that is doing whatever they want and we don't have any say. There's this theme that like we have the Illuminati.
Right. And I always ask, who is they? Because when I'm in conversations with people, they say they are manipulating it.
Right.
But let's really ask, who is they?
Right. That's what's just
and
fun about it.
why is it being manipulated?
Right. And then where's the proof?
Exactly.
Yeah. And there probably could be, and that's confirmation bias, right?
Correct.
So there could be, but then also like there's a lot of other factors that we don't even control.
Do you feel like though there's a lot of that we really just have no fucking clue, and that we're just being kind of fed a narrative and stuff where we aren't really actually even being told the truth, and we're living a like, what is that one movie? Oh, it's so triggering to me.
The Matrix,
Not
the Truman
Matrix,
Show.
Truman Show.
I'm like, there's so many examples. Yes.
The Truman Show makes me want to like physically want to hurl thinking about it. If that actually was real, how horrendous.
I feel like sometimes it would be funny. It would be fun. Like if you could just like wake up and be like, oh my gosh, Truman Show. Like, here it is, dude. Like, it's just like a cosmic joke. Like, you're like, what is happening?
And then you're walking down the street and the light falls and you're like, oh, that's weird.
And then you're
Keep
like,
on going.
okay, this makes sense now, right?
I know, right? It does
Like-
make life make sense because weird things happen and you're like, that makes no sense.
Yeah, like conspiracy theorists would say the glitch in the Matrix, right?
Right.
There's things that happen that you're like,
Something that just repeats, like the same car drives by.
Yeah.
Like in a row.
yes.
Have you noticed the glitch in the Matrix?
Have I noticed the glitch in the Matrix? I don't think so.
Okay.
I think, like, not that I can think of, and maybe it'll come to me and I'll interject later, but I think that I just recognize in my mind perceived patterns, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes me just say, like, I don't really even know.
It makes
I don't even know
absolutely
what's
no
happening
sense,
right
and I have
now.
no answer for this.
Right, which is why I love conspiracy theories so much, because,
Mm-hmm.
like, even if you, like, don't believe all of them, it's just fun sometimes to get all the information, right?
Right.
Because it's just,
And to
you're getting
investigate.
yes, you're getting a completely, I mean, some people are going to say whack, but you get like a lot of these conspiracy theorists are very well researched. Like they spend hours and hours and hours and hours researching.
Like that one show I tipped you off to
Yeah,
that we
correct.
talk about all the time.
Yeah, totally. And so like that guy is so intelligent.
Oh my God.
And people probably roll their eyes at some of the things he says, but like you're like, this guy is researching so much.
Exactly.
And we
Like-
have our own biases to just discount people.
So we were talking about this too, the atomic bomb. Was
Yeah.
it really an atomic bomb that
yeah.
detonated over onto Hiroshima, right?
Right, right.
Because there was one episode we listened to and Crow 777, it's
Yeah.
CRROW 777.
Love you, Crow. Yeah.
Anyways, he talks about how that is not real, and he brings on people from Japan who are like first generation, second generation
Right.
from the aftermath of it, and what they've experienced, what they know, what their family members and what people have said from this experience. And then he brought on an actual nuclear scientist
Mm-hmm.
who has a legit German accent that presents. He said, oh my God, I came across this information and then I started researching it and discovered that it wasn't even an atomic bomb. They just mimicked it and made it seem like it was, and then created the rumor of it because they actually didn't even have the, what was it? Shit.
They didn't have it together yet? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, they didn't have what was the actual element that they
I don't
needed?
remember.
Shit.
Is that what it
Was
is?
it uranium? I think it might have been. Oh, I think it was plutonium.
Right.
And kryptonite.
You need
Okay.
plutonium to go 88 miles an hour.
That's right. That's right. And that's exactly what I thought of. Sorry. That's why I started laughing. But yeah, like, and some people would be so offended by that
Why though?
They
Why
would-
are they offended by it?
because I don't know. Like, and here's the crazy thing. Like, I mean, me not living in Japan, like, I'm just like, what do I believe? Right?
Because we
Like-
have all the
like-
movies that show
Right.
it to us, and these video clips, these old video clips that were taken from a B-52 bomber, right? Have you
Right.
seen those?
Uh-huh.
And then the images of people's shadows or whatever, because they were incinerated.
Right.
You've seen
Right.
that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just crazy. And then you're like, okay, I believe this, right? So it's like, but I think you see all of that like going on in like so many movies and so many things like that it's just hard to know what to believe, right? Like the moon landing, right?
Right,
There's
the
this
moon.
new film coming out with Scarlett Johansson, and it's all about like how they might have faked the moon landing, which is really cool.
Oh, I can't wait to watch
Yeah,
it.
because it's all like they say like Kubrick like was hired and like and so in like The Shining. Like when Kubrick took The Shining, he like changed a lot of the story of Stephen King's to like align with like little Easter eggs that like he faked the moon landing. Like the kid is wearing this like spaceship shirt, like the room numbers, like this is where they think they filmed it on set. And so and then you're like, the flag waved, right? And so then that makes you think like, well, could they have done that? Because I think that, okay, I try to do the best and see the best in people, like personally, but then also like we can't help it that we're humans. Like sometimes you can't help working in your best interest, right? So like as humans, like we're also gonna like see outwardly what we see inwardly, right? We're mirroring that. Right. So like if you like are already doing that, then it's easy for you to jump from like this thing to the next thing and say, well, everybody's working in their own personal interest, because you can't blame that a lot of people do work in their own personal interests, right? But also.
And what is in your awareness and focus is what you're actually seeing and drawing and attracting to you too.
Right. So like if we go back, and I don't want to pull this back to like the good old boys, but like we could do this whole thing about the good old boys, and then we could see like, really this might be where you were saying they're real estate, they're this. They might just be like really laser focused on like developing what they're developing, right? And then we're
creating
like,
what they want to create in this community.
Right. And then they're like, and then the people that don't love that are going to say, well, they're out to get us, right? Because that's not against my personal interest. But if we like...
Or agenda.
Looked behind the curtain, we might find out that like they were just doing what they thought was best, right? And kind of like, I mean, it's this weird thing, like even as a parent, right? Like you are teaching these children, and obviously like you can be super unfiltered, you can be whatever, but then you're also like leading them like a little bit, I mean maybe biasly, right? Because you're like, this is my paradigm, this is what I'm operating in. I mean, I had a discussion with my boys the other day, they're both 14 and 13, and like just about like I mean, we were talking about like consent and different things like that, and lyrics and music, because I'm really into music, and we had just watched Dune 2. And I was talking to him about Zendaya and Timothy Chalamet. Is that his name?
There's such great symbolism in that movie, by the way.
So good. Oh my gosh. That's a whole rhetoric
I could watch
thing.
it again.
That is a whole rhetoric thing. But like and I was trying to tell him like, we know like Zendaya's dating Tom Holland. And I was telling them like, she's not being forced because she's an actress, right? But she's like being like put in a predicament to pretend like she loves Timothy. This is a horrible example, but this is me trying to say like, listen, you need to learn how to pick up on like, things like you can't just, because I work with all women, so you can't be a creep, you got to do this. And so but it was like, and then it was like, I think it was received, but it was also like really awkward. And I remember we went to a gas station, I called my wife, and I was just like, I don't know if I messed him up more, like I feel like a horrible dad. And my wife was like, I mean, like this is a really good thing, and like we're all like unless, well, we can table this, but we're all doing this for the first time, unless you believe you're not. But like but do you know what I mean?
That's
like we're all
theory.
going through this, and we're all just trying to do the best that we know how with our own like biases, with our own stuff, right?
Right. So basically we're going back to cognitive thinking.
Yes.
And thinking outside the box, or challenging things, or literally approaching a subject and approaching a situation differently than maybe how our parents did it with us.
Right.
Possibly. Okay, I want to go to history.
Okay.
So I am a major history buff, and I went through school and absolutely loved history. And I almost went into archaeology because I freaking love archaeology and all of that stuff. And then I really started to just see history from a different perspective, and that I could see two people. I've seen myself in so many situations with another person in a particular event, and then how we both recount it is entirely different.
Right.
And then I came across a friend who was a history teacher at a high school, and every year they told him to throw away the history books, and he didn't. And he looked over them over the course of the years, and each year they had altered the history books.
Interesting.
Right. Yeah. And so I have come to this conclusion too, that I cannot trust sources of history.
Right.
Because it really comes from the eye of the beholder, like Napoleon. He could write a book and say, look at all of these things I conquered and all these women I fucked and blah, blah, blah.
What a
rawr,
movie.
rawr,
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But is that really the truth? Is that really what happened?
What he did?
Right. And so that is another example of how we need to really be questioning the stuff we're reading and that's placed in front of us.
Right. He was just really good at using a canon. So whatever that was, but I don't know if you watched that movie.
I did. I watched that movie.
What is happening right now? And then you read at the end, it's like millions were killed. And he was just this like
small man.
Well,
he might have had a small penis.
And historically,
issue too.
he might have been like average, but yes, he's seen as being very small. But he also like was revered. Like they throw him out to an island. He's like, nah, I'm coming back. And I'm going to just kill a bunch of people. And then he was like, that backfired. And then they're like,
right?
throw him back to the island.
Is
and
that
he's like,
accurate?
okay, I give up. I'm going to the island. I don't know. I think that there's that theory, right? That history is written by the victors. And so, but then you get these alternative facts, right? So like there's this idea that like what is his name? The Rockefellers helped fund the German war, right? So in the beginning,
the whole World
like,
War II and the Nazis, they still exist. They're
because
here.
it was in their best interest, right? Like they were trying to fight communism. They were like, we're pumping you all this money. And then that backfired on them with this dude named Hitler. And then they're like, okay, we don't want to talk about this anymore.
Okay, why are all of the Nazi dudes now working for America?
Right. And that's another thing, right? Operation Paperclip. So they instead of like I don't know what the right word, sentencing them, they're like, but we'll give you like immunity if you like come over and develop the bombs for us.
Yeah, be
right?
a really
Do all the
smart
things.
scientist.
And there's proof of that. There's people that are like, our family did that. So that's what's really hard because you're like, it makes it easy to just not believe what people are saying. Because there's this alternative viewpoint, right? So it could be like everybody sees things through their own lens, right? Like we're all having our own unique experience simultaneously, right? Like, and I believe like even my job like is all about communication, and I'm a decent communicator. And then I also fall short, right? Like I could like, when I'm looking at a client's picture, like an inspiration, I could like dissect, like for me, I'll dissect the whole picture. And then I might have like felt like I nailed it and I'm blowing them out. And they're like, oh, I just actually liked the tone of that. I'm like doing the placement. I'm doing this. I'm doing that, right?
Which you're really good. You're so good at that because there's been a couple of times I've altered and shifted my hair color a little bit. And you're like, please bring me pictures.
Yeah. Well, because there's a lot lost in communication, right? And so that's what's really hard. And so I find value in like really getting into the nitty gritty, right? But we're having completely different, like, I mean, I could, and this is not, like this is extreme, but like I could have cataracts and I could see every blonde being warm and then every blonde is blue. Yeah. And it would just be, you know what I mean?
But is there any right or wrong to that?
I mean, it's all personal. Like even with hair, like
all perspective.
When a client like might do something, and this is very like little now because I have a lot of regulars, but in the past I've done things that I didn't necessarily love, but I nailed it. I mean, but that's perspective, right? It's like, but what's important is that they love it. Right. It doesn't matter that I love it. And like, and there's a little bit of that to that where I really just do not what I want, but I have cultivated that clientele to do now more what I want. And that makes sense. But when you're in the beginning, you're just trying to figure that out. So everything is perspective. Everything is going through like a lens. And so that's what makes it super hard.
Okay. So question for you.
Yeah.
Now we've identified the fact that there can be so many different perspectives and so many different approaches to the facts and stuff that are presented to us. Why is it important to keep an open mind? And why is it important to even entertain conversations like this? Because I'm with people where I know to never even bring anything up to them because literally it just like inflames them and fires them up. And they're just like venom. And why is that?
I think because
and how do we approach this?
Yeah, I feel like
be more open-minded with each other.
Yeah, I feel like these conversations can be really uncomfortable for people because we have these convictions, right? But I think we've learned through time and time again that like these convictions can sometimes be shattered. These convictions, like you get more information, like you might change as a person, right? And so I think it's important to gather information and kind of keep an open mind because you just don't ever know. Like,
we have no fucking clue.
Right. Like life is so, for me, everyone says life is so short, but I actually believe that life is so long in my opinion. I mean, I did have somebody point out like, yeah, you could pass away like at any moment, but like, I feel like I'm probably going to I'm going to tap out around 80. That's like so much more time. And look how much things have shifted just in our lives, right?
Oh my gosh, just since 2020.
Just since 2020. Like
and I
all
feel like
of the
the shift is
information about
coming
that. Right.
from this eclipse.
Right. And I feel like, so you could get into it and be like, that's a vibrational shift. Like we're trying to get into more enlightenment.
Are we becoming more aware?
Right. We're like having a bit of a renaissance, right? And I think that you just have to be adaptable. And if you're not, then you'll die on that hill. And that's okay too. Like I work with many, many individuals where they hold different beliefs than my own. And I adapt to those beliefs a lot, not because I feel like I'm compromising myself or I'm being a chameleon, but like truly I'm invested in them. And the things that are important to them become important to me because I want them to feel heard and I want them to feel seen. And I don't really want to and I'm never going in the break room being like, oh my gosh, that's BS. But I really want them to feel validated because I want to feel validated. Right. Yeah. And I might not at the end of the day say, I totally understand that, but I think that it becomes so valuable. I know I just used that, but valuable to say, okay, you've shifted my perspective on that. And we're never going to grow or evolve if we don't have that ability. And some people don't want to, though. So you also have to
do not want to grow and evolve. They do not want to consider anything outside of their framework.
Yeah, and on the flip side, they're also very comfortable being where they are. So maybe that's not that they don't want to grow and evolve. Maybe they're just like, I am so solid and convicted in this. This is my paradigm. This is my thing, and I'm good.
Yeah, and that's okay too. And we can just accept each other and everyone's where they're at in their life and what they have come to understand at this point in their life.
Right.
And it is okay. Why do we have to have such strong emotions when someone presents something to us that is contradictory to our belief system?
I think that it makes you, at least in just speaking for myself, I think that I don't know, maybe as humans, maybe it's just me, I don't know. You experience a certain level of shame and embarrassment sometimes, right? And so maybe if you're like, oh, that really knocked me off my feet. You're like, how do I feel about that, right? Mm-hmm. This is an example I feel like I can say. So when, I don't know why, but it seemed like there was this rhythm for a while that I had a lot of people talking about divorce, right? And for me, I don't really want to be divorced. I really love my wife. That would be in my opinion, one of the worst things that could happen for me personally, right? Mm-hmm. And so it would really, really make me sad. I would be like, oh my gosh. And primarily I deal with women, and they're not, for you guys listening, they're not trashing husbands or whatever, but they're just talking about real life experiences, right? And so I would take that home. I would be really sad. And then I had a coworker that totally shifted my perspective. Her divorce was really positive. Mm. She was really, she moved into a different direction. She grew as a human being. She got to experience the things of life that she wasn't experiencing, that she felt like she was missing. It was like the relationship had kind of run its course. Mm-hmm. And that really shifted my thinking about being this isn't maybe such a bad thing, right?
It's okay to explore stuff and concepts.
Right. And so some people, and not that we're dwelling on divorce, but some people will just stay in a really horrible relationship because they don't want to shift, because they don't want to do that. Some people will hold on to beliefs because it hurts and it's uncomfortable and it's shameful. It's humiliating. Enter any whatever. And you don't want to do that. A lot of us don't want to do that, right? I don't know. For me, my whole life has been uncomfortable, so I'm just open to it. I feel like my whole existence has been difficult and uncomfortable, and I'm still trying to figure it out. I don't understand the games that people play. And so I just am I'm open to talking to you about anything.
Yeah, and that's what I really like about you so much.
Thank you.
Besides that you're an amazing colorist, and I've never had the most glorious red hair like I've had before.
Yeah.
I must say.
Thank you.
But I completely agree. Maybe it is because people don't want to get uncomfortable, but getting out of your comfort zone is actual growth and expansion.
Right.
And almost transcendental.
Right.
And so I have come to the conclusion, because there's certain people in my life that I observe and they want to stay stagnant and they want to stay in situations and things and I just let it be.
Right.
Because there's really nothing, that is their life they choose to live. That is their choices. That's what they want. They are consciously choosing it on a fucking daily basis.
Right.
And that is the same with these belief systems. And so there's only so much that we can do to really say, hey, you know, there's other things out there. There's other options. There's other possibilities. There's other outcomes. And what is going on currently that you see right here may not be what's really going on outside you. And ironically, I heard this really amazing quote when I was LDS. It was a conference talk.
Nice.
And I don't even remember who said this, but this really hit me profoundly. And he said that, and you know, honestly, there is truth in everything.
Right.
And I grew up with a mother who was hippie, who joined the LDS church, who studied every religion. And she said to me, Heather, there's truth in everything. And so never discount something just because it comes in a guise or clothing of something else, right?
Yeah.
Always just be open and receptive and be willing to hear and to listen, to see, like you say, because we all want to be seen and heard. Right. But he said, there are times in our lives where we are looking at something that literally looks like a huge boulder or like a big mountain just right here, this big thing right here in our face, this rock. And if you just actually pulled it away and stepped away from it, you would see it's just a grain of sand on the beach.
Sure.
And there are so many things in our life where we're just like, oh my God, look at this. And it's in my way. And then we pull it away. And then you get a grander, bigger perspective.
Right. It's like, so we hyper-focus, right? So there's a couple things. So like, nobody wants to be wrong. Nobody wants to be a failure, right? I think those are the biggest fears for everyone, right? Mm-hmm. And so, like, and I experience that a lot with my craft because I've taught a lot of people. And it's like, if you shift that, right? Like if you're riding a bike, like it's fun, right? It's experiential and it can be fun. Like you're going to fall, you're going to bruise your knee, you're going to be whatever, but you don't look at it and say, I'm never going to do this again.
Oh my
I'm such a
God,
failure.
I'm going down the hill really fast and the hair's blowing through
Right.
and it feels so freeing.
You get on the other side, you get on the other side and you're like, this is incredible, right?
Yeah.
And so I think like, you know, being able to pull out of that like very hyper-focused view and being able to experiencing things different is not a bad thing because at the end of the day, like I actually love and value people that have their convictions, but I just think like we kind of don't know, like you know, like even with the whole like everything that's going on right now, like
with politics or what?
With politics, I mean, I don't know. That was such a blanket
economic
statement.
climate.
I was thinking about aliens, but
See, I love how we can talk about anything. And this is fun. You guys, it's fun to be able to talk about anything and just really explore.
Yeah, I was thinking about aliens and how like the government was like, you know, they were doing Project Blue Book and they were trying to like do all these things. And then they were just like, there's no
invasion.
aliens, right? The fake
and now there are aliens.
And now they're like, oh, actually they are. But they're not UFOs now, they're UAPs because now they can be like bio whatever, you know, like not bionic, I don't know what I'm trying to say. They could be biology, they're not just spacecrafts. I don't know if you ever saw Nope, which is so good. And then you know, and then they say, what do they call them now? They call them entities now. They don't call them like aliens. They call them entities, which my perspective is that they're just coming through the 5D. But
they're coming through portals.
Yeah, they're coming through portals.
But are they even real? Do aliens even exist, or is that just a narrative that we've been fed?
Right.
To create fear.
I mean, but there'll be people that see entities, so they're like, that's bias. Or like, there's like literally my brothers, we would just joke that we're like, maybe that's just the government and they wear big aviators and they're just like a hippie, like walking through the forest and he's drugged and they pick someone up and they're like, and they're just like, and then they did all these experiments and then like, you know, and then 10 years go by and we just advanced so much and we were like, aliens, right? We don't know.
We really don't know. That is the summary of all of it. We don't know.
Right.
But it's okay to not know. It's okay to explore. It's okay to question.
Yeah.
It's okay to experience how other people experience or see things through their eyes. Mm-hmm. And if we all just really stepped out of our very rigidity that we've created around us and literally saw how other people see things and experience things and how information is coming through in so many different avenues and so many different sources and just implore. I'm going to throw in a spiritual element on this.
Okay.
How do we know what is truth? And for me personally, I go within and I get into a practice of meditation. I have learned to tune in to my body and spiritually on things, and maybe not even about aliens per se, or even about the presidential race, because I really just don't give a fuck. To me, though, when something is super important, I go within to know, is this true and right for me? Because truth, there is a common theme of truth throughout everything.
Right.
But we all have our own individual truths too. And that's okay. And if we just all really stepped into this love and acceptance and kindness towards each other, all of this, there wouldn't be such heightened emotions and such divide. Mm-hmm. And there we go. Thanks, Evan, for having us.
Yep, I agree with all of that. Thank you for having me.
Until next time, we'll have to do a pre-elections one.
That's right. It'll be wild.
And aliens.
Thank you for listening to the I Drank the Kool-Aid podcast. Join us next time. If you'd like to participate in this discussion, get a hold of us at idrankthekoolaidpodcast@gmail.com. Now let me ask you, what flavor of Kool-Aid are you drinking?
This has been a production from a podcast studio.